Ladies and gentlemen, good to have you back here after our lunch break. I was hoping that since Hall A went into the break early, that we could actually start on time, but unfortunately, the fish took up some time to actually get properly cooked, I guess. So we're just falling a little behind. All right. The last sort of stretch of the day 2 of the 11th Bosphorus Summit. Last night, as I was preparing to make a couple of remarks to the session, I went back and I tried to research some of the oldest accounts or references made to the social impact of digitalization, and I came across one that dates back about a decade, and in that document, it made this claim that the effects would be as profound, if not more profound, than the written word. 10 years on, I don't know. That's the question. Without further ado, let me hand it over to the session's moderator, Ms. Ceren Çerçiler. She is the vice chair of the International Cooperation Platform's Executive Board. I'm going to hand it over to you. Ceren?
Thank you, Alican. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our summit. And this year we've gone hybrid thanks to the pandemic. And we've been adapting to the digital world ourselves as well. Every year we hold this panel on future technologies, but I believe today we found ourselves more in tune with the future than ever before. Whether we are ready or not is a question that is sure. Whether we're ready or not, digitalization has begun transforming our societies and our economies. But with the pandemic, we've seen that this has increased even more so. This is a disruptive technology that will create change that is beyond our imagination. So much so that, we're at a crossroads between risk and opportunities. The EU has recently this month launched its 2030 Digital Compass to make sure companies and societies can transition into this digital era more smoothly. What is coming next is an unknown, it's a mystery, but it actually depends on each and every one of us, and it depends on people like the speakers that we have on our panel today. If it's okay with you, I will start by introducing them so you're more familiar with everyone in our panel. And I'll start with our ladies. I'll start with Eglantina and Vanessa. Eglantina Zing is a true trailblazer. She has used her fame as a TV host, as a model, as an actress, to launch initiatives such as Goleadoras. And she has been commissioned every year by the United Nations as an agent of peace. And she was born in Venezuela, she was raised in the Amazons, and she now lives between New York and Miami. We have Vanessa Areye, who's a dear friend. She's a former cultural attaché of Mexico in the UK. She's an angel investor and a connector of people in the social impact space as the Chief Strategy Officer of Buffalo Grid. We have Anthony Bennett, again, joining us from the UK online. Anthony is the CEO of Reboot the Future, which is a think tank dedicated to using the golden rule, as he says, which makes sure you treat others and the planet as you treat ourselves. Armando Guastella, who's originally from Sicily. He's from Bain and Company. He has over 14 years of experience in the area of consultancy, and he's been based in Europe, in Middle East, and Asia, and he has expertise in a wide range of areas such as strategic advisory to governance, innovation, and organization. We have Erol Uzet, and Erol is a very interesting character. He's an entrepreneur and a visionary leader. He's the founder of Blockchain Army, which works closely with the European Commission. It works closely with NASA, the UN, World Health Organization, the German Federal Parliament, you name it. He's such an inspiration to all of us. We have Mr. Ergin Aydın, who was born in Germany. He's been in the textile industry since 1996. And he's actually revolutionizing the textile industry as well with a virtual reality company that they founded together with his partners back in 2017. So we have an interesting panel. I'm going to start with Anthony, who's joining us online.
Just a kind reminder, Jedan.
Yeah.
I think you may have slipped your mind. Maybe you actually have a keynote speaker for your session.
We do have a very important keynote speaker, and we have His Excellency, the Minister of Technology and IT Communications from Afghanistan. His Excellency, would you like to come and join us on stage?
Skabari? No, she will from up here.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sayın hükümet yetkilileri,
distinguished representatives of the governments, dear entrepreneurs, distinguished representatives of the companies and the pioneers in the field of technology, ladies and gentlemen, may peace and mercy of God be upon you. In this very important summit, I am glad to be with you. I would like to thank for this organization. And I am also glad that we will have a chance to voice our expectations. As you know, after the corona virus, the digitalization will have a huge impact on the society. That's why the collaboration and cooperation in the field of social impact is highly important. Valuable and estimable participants and guests, due to the needs of today's age, societies are leading towards an era where people are starting to live like robots. I mean, such kind of technology which are being dictated on many developing countries, including but not limited to Afghanistan, is increasing the need for digitalization. That's why the governments have the responsibility to enable their citizens to make use of digital technologies. In today's age, just like many other countries, Afghanistan is providing digital platforms for registration of the companies and undersigning of the marriage certificates. All of financial transactions can be carried out through electronic forms, and our citizens had the chance to make use of the digital libraries, and different public bodies are also making use of those digital platforms so that our citizens have a chance to reach those legal documents. And this is what Afghanistan is responsible for providing to its citizens. During 2015, during the presidency of Ashraf Ghani in Afghanistan, the digital infrastructure need has been recognized, and the fiber optic network has been developed in order to satisfy those needs. And in order to reach out to the target set forth by the government, the lack of qualified labor force and the lack of right infrastructure are seen to be the basic obstacles for the digitalization of the Afghanistan. Strengthening the e-government activities are also important, and it will definitely diminish and eradicate the falsified legal documents and the digitalized transactions will definitely decrease the bureaucracies, which will enable governments to make and save some time and money.
Değerli katılımcılar,
Estimable
geçen yıl
participants,
için iyi bir yıl değildi.
last year was not a good year for the whole globe.
Dünyanın
The
yeni
COVID-19 pandemic
tecrübe etmesine neden oldu.
actually led us to experience very challenging times. During the quarantine, people had to stay inside of their houses, and many of the companies, unfortunately, has shrunk in terms of their economic activities. That's why only hospitals actually increased their profits. Corona test labs and telecommunication companies increased their profits. And this pandemic is not the first one that we are experiencing, but via social media, for the first time, the whole world has a chance to learn in details about the pandemic, maybe for the first time in the whole human history. The social media channels are not used only for disseminating the information, but they were also serving a platform where the scientists can actually cooperate and collaborate with each other. In the post-COVID-19 period, the actors in commerce will be adapted more to such e-commerce technologies. And in addition to that, I do believe that the way of doing business will be changing as well. During COVID-19, we know that the way of doing business has already changed. So right now, the daily office works can be carried out without physically being actually in the office. We have experienced it already, and we have also experienced the e-learning. As a result, the digital data will be highly important and valuable in the post-COVID-19 period. And as the economies are digitalizing even further, the companies who have already taken precautions and steps towards the digitalization have a bigger chance of realizing this leapfrog growth. But unfortunately, the countries who couldn't adapt themselves to the digitalization, they will have huge difficulties, especially in the post-COVID-19 period. And the inequalities between those countries, unfortunately, will be even higher with comparison to pre-COVID-19 times. Valuable guests, COVID-19 is a topic which deserves further discussion to be carried out between politicians, economists, and social experts, because developing the digital infrastructure of countries will be highly important so that those countries will have a chance to provide digital services to their citizens. And at the same time, the quality of the life of our citizens and the feeling of equality can be boosted and strengthened with the improvement in digital technologies. And at the same time, the development of digital technologies will bring along sustainable development and fair priced energy resources. Digital solution and services will definitely facilitate the trade between countries, and at the same time, they will prevent abuses like manipulations and embezzlements. And at the same time, the authorities will have a chance to issue licenses without use of paper with the digitalization. As we are not using papers anymore, but we are focusing on using digital platforms, I do believe that our issues, on the governmental level, will be tackled much more easier. And thanks to the digitalization, the sustainable development goals will be easily realized. and it will definitely serve for increasing the welfare of the societies. The quality of the education will be strengthened. The gender equality will be obtained thanks to the digitalization. Having an access to hygiene water, renewable energy sources will be eased, and at the same time, innovations will be promoted, and the injustice in the international arena will be tackled. And at the same time, thanks to the digitalization, a sustainable supply model will be presented for all the societies, and fight against the climate change and sustainable use of water resources will be a reality.
Adalet dayalı
And with the digitalization, a comprehensive democratic practice will be strengthened. These are the benefits of digitalization. Distinguished participants, there are, of course, certain disadvantages which might bring along with the digitalization. Unfortunately, digitalization can bring along certain disadvantages just like advantages. Among the first that comes to our mind, the violation of the private life, manipulating the election results, the substitution of human labor with the artificial intelligence, and the automation activities might actually bring along negative impacts on the job opportunities of millions of people. I do believe we have to underline those issues very briefly. The data safety and security. As we know that with the digitalization, hundreds and thousands of data can be collected very easily, and those data comprise very sensitive information from corporate information even to the personal data. As the cyber attacks are increasing, such information can easily be stolen, and as a result, providing the security of those data is much more harder with comparison to past. The privacy of the personal life. Everyone has a smartphone today, so any picture, selfie, or video can be broadcasted on the social media. It's quite easy. That's why stealing and selling of those personal information is a risk that we are facing today. That's why protecting the personal data is much harder, if not impossible, in certain conditions. As we know that the data on the internet can be manipulated much more easily by using certain applications. The pictures and also certain sound recordings on the internet can be manipulated, which can be used for providing fake news on the internet. Today's people are spending most of their times online and internet. That's why the societies can be manipulated with those disinformation and fake news. The issue regarding to the protection of the proprietary rights. As you know, the copyright issues are taking the ground these days. That's why such products subject to the proprietary rights can easily be copied, and it is much harder to track those violations these days. And fake accounts are also one of the tools for hiding your real identity in such kind of a platform. That's why people are trying to hide their identities, and they, at the
isyan
same time, disseminating fake news, or they sometimes bully their peers in order to intimidate their opponents. Estimable participants, during 21st century, the technological developments have given hope to societies, but unfortunately, the Afghan woman unfortunately couldn't make use of those online platforms. Their presence in the online platform is not at the desired level, and the ownership of smartphone by Afghan women is not at the desired level. The digital literacy of the Afghan woman is a huge problem today, and this is due to the socio-cultural norms and the lack of access to those digital technologies. Unfortunately, the Afghan women have 26% less smartphone ownership with comparison to Afghan men. The social media used by Afghan women will definitely serve for the protection of their fundamental rights and gender equality, and also serving for the utmost good of the democracy. For Afghan girls and Afghan women, we believe that we should encourage them to learn coding and programming, and we should invest in their digital literacy. I do believe it will be a meaningful contribution to those digital platforms. Valuable participants, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, let me share certain observations coming from Afghan women. If we are not getting rid of prejudices and hate, the poverty will last in Afghanistan. If we are not getting rid of the racism, unfortunately, the world will be in shambles and will be burned under the fire of hypocrisy. That's why we should get rid of those prejudices as soon as possible. If we cannot do that, unfortunately, the solidarity among people will never be strong as we desire. As a mother, I want the children to smile all the time. Thank you so much for your patience, and I hope and I wish for a world where discrimination never exists. Thank you.
Sayın Bakan, çok teşekkür ederiz.
Thank you very much,
Madam Minister.
distinguished minister.
Thank you very much. Minister Havari, Afghanistan's Minister for Communication and Internet Technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Minister. It was really enlightening, and thank you for speaking in Turkish during our panel. Çok teşekkürler. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as the Madam Minister has addressed this panel, she's talked about how digitalization can, if we have enough accessibility, can provide solutions to discrimination, gender inequality, reskilling people for unemployment, etc., which will be topics that we'll address during our panel. So I'll start with Anthony. Anthony, could you first of all hit on the topic of digitalization and whether it can provide a unifying space for all of us?
Hi, hello there. Can you hear me okay? Let's go.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you very much. So first of all, let me just say how pleased I am to be invited here, but also how disappointed I am not to be in Istanbul, which is my favorite city in the world. And in a sense, that disparity is a part of which I would want to speak to. So I think in terms of this universalizing aspect of the digital world, I think we have to call this into query. Okay, so we know that, for instance, at this stage, that 50% of the world does not have internet access. And in some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, it's less than 5%. So there is a massive question mark over the question of accessibility. But also, I think in terms of the assumptions that we have about infinite rollout of the digital space as well. And that every person in the world will have a smartphone device and all services will be accessed equally. I think we're starting to see the limits of this assumption. And I think part of those limits are clearly environmental, right? So we make the assumption that we have infinite resources and that the digital realm is an infinite space. However, we are most aware, especially in this meta crisis of climate and COVID, that we have a finite world. So it is not a symmetrical assumption. And, there was the famous, what they call Moore's theorem, which is the idea that we double the capacity of transistors every 2 years. And this has been true. It's like we've been twice as powerful in terms of how we process data online every 2 years for the last 50 years. But there's evidence that that is coming to an end, and that we've possibly kind of come to a ceiling as to both the physical resources and also the capacities of this. So this is a kind of oddity, because we tend to we continue to think that there is an in space that we can access here. But if we look at, for instance, the amount of physical resources that server farms require, then we can see that they require huge amounts of water, which is an increasingly scarce resource. The average email has got a higher carbon footprint than a paper letter, and that the precious metals necessary for your smartphone are already, an incredible scarcity. So we cannot predicate. It's an old-fashioned kind of 20th century impulse that history only goes in one direction, and I think, at least in part, we have to start assuming that, as William Gibson says, the future is already here, but it's unevenly distributed. Okay, so what will a very speeded distribution of digital access look like? And I think we have to incorporate that into some recognition of the idea that digital access and digital space is a human rights issue.
Yes.
That its labors and its impacts are often buried. So much like within classical economic theory, we do not incorporate into our digital thinking the impact on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Very well put, Anthony. And actually, I'm going to pass the word to now to Mr. Errol, because what you're defining actually is in line with circular economy. This way, with the circular economy, through the use of digitalization, we'll be able to create better solutions that are environmentally friendly, that will tackle issues that you have mentioned as well. So would you be able to enhance on what Anthony has been explaining in terms of the digital culture and circular economy?
Okay. So first of all, as Anthony mentioned and Madam Minister emphasized, digital transformation is sweeping the business landscape. Leaders are embracing it wholeheartedly because they recognize its power. But as companies advance from pilot programs to wide-scale adoption, they often run into an unexpected obstacle. As you mentioned, it is culture clash. So being a digital organization means not only having digital products, services, and consumer interactions, but also providing core operations with technology. So when we are talking this way, then we are meaning about circular economy.
Could you explain a little bit on
how we will do it? Okay. So what I will say, on digital transformation, to digital culture, everything will also depend on the people. Mm-hmm. But which people, when you ask which people, then we should say it should be the core, should be the leaders. Leaders need to acknowledge digital transformation as a fundamental strategic paradigm shift that it is to be used like any major transformation. Mm-hmm. So there are some key points, I would say, to define this digital transformation to digital culture. We could talk from 5 defining elements. First of all, it should promote an external rather than internal operations. It prizes delegation over control. It encourages wholeness over caution. It emphasizes more action and less planning. it values collaboration more than individual effort. So when we go that way, then we could say how we could get the results faster. To get results faster on a digital transformation, I would say the digital culture attracts the talent. That's the one of the main points. And how we can, identify critical actions to that point is, I can say, articulate the change required, activate leadership characteristics, and engage employees. I think Mr. Ergin will go more in details on the employee side, and align the organizational context to embed the new culture.
Mm-hmm.
That are the points I want to emphasize. And last, I would say the window of the opportunity is in reality narrowing. And it won't be long before being a fully digital organization will be table stakes. By shaping a digital culture, I would say yesterday or now, companies can secure competitive advantage while investing in their own long-term sustainable performance.
Well, it is a ticking clock, isn't it? So yeah, the sooner the better. But one point that we all have in our minds is, how about those who don't have enough access to the internet, accessibility? And Vanessa, I know you're working on this a lot with Buffalo Grid, especially in rural areas or third world countries. And as the Madam Minister also suggested, how are we going to make sure that there's digital literacy?
Well, the pandemic has proven, so first of all, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
Fine.
we can.
Okay,
Perfectly.
perfect. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I mean, the thing is, it's that the pandemic has proven how critical equal access is, especially when it comes to education. We know that there is a digital divide, but also an extraordinary gender divide within the digital divide. And there's children that have not been to school for over a year now, and they already didn't have a great education to start off with. So as Anthony mentioned, half of the world's population is not connected to the internet, but this doesn't really seem right. If we know that 4 billion people don't have access to the internet, but 3.4 billion of them have access to 3 and 4G. So the question of connectivity is not cabling or massive infrastructures or huge massive investments. It's actually innovation. And frugal innovation is a great way of looking at it. There's many solutions out there that are providing services to people and that need it the most. We, for example, work with underserved communities in peri-urban areas, in rural areas, and also in displaced communities, so within the humanitarian and refugee crisis. So we all know that the reason why people are not connected is basically affordability is number one. Digital skills, as Madam Minister had mentioned, are critical. Then the relevance of content, I believe, was also mentioned in one point, and this can go along with what Errol said about the culture clash. We need to be providing what people need and want. And then also infrastructure. We can't really expect to be connecting people if they cannot charge their phones. If we know that mobile phones is the easiest way for people to be connected and get information or health or education, if they can't charge their phones, we've already failed at the first step. So the whole purpose of digital and innovation and bridging the gap would be bringing in infrastructure. We've mentioned the education and the health, and also, well, we've got the subject of women's rights. So female empowerment not just comes from the education, but also the later generations, that you can provide certain skills to support them in developing the local economies. We know that women will reinvest 90% of their income into the education, nutrition, and health of their children and of their community. So there is also another thing to be considered here with innovation and digitalization, where we need to bring in not just to focus on including girls in the education system, but starting to include women in the economic development or digitalization of the local economies of places that need it the most. So that will allow us to close the gap.
Yeah, it's so important to close the gap, and the more we empower women, the easier it will be for all of us to close the gap in terms of humanity, not just in one aspect. So, and Eglantina, you've been working a lot with girls, as you call girls with balls, with goleadoras, and you've been using a very innovative digital platform to make sure they have a voice and to make sure that the gap is more closed. Could you please tell us how you've achieved this?
Well, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for having me here, and I'm super happy and pleased to be amongst.
Very early in Miami, right? Yes.
Very early. The sun is not even out, but for you and to be in this panel, I'll do anything. Thank you. Yes, Jaren, goleadoras or hashtag girls with balls, which is just a metaphor for any relationship that is standing on equal foot. We use soccer, football, the magic of connecting through maybe not the technology part, but now with the the technologies and all the advancements has helped us reach, more, have access to more girls. The idea of using soccer is it's the most popular sport in the world, and yet women and girls are not well seen while playing, and in many countries are not even allowed to watch a game, not even just play. So there's a big gender disparity and gaps in just starting with the games we play, and it goes all along to the access of opportunities that women and girls have in the world, not just on developed countries, but in general, no? And I think that it's something that that through not only connecting them, but what we do is educate them on how to use this technology and how to use the tools that will get them, will help us close that gap. The resilience, the communication, the leadership, those are cores of educating while connecting. There's something very funny happening here in the US. There's a software that most schools are using and giving the kids, but most of the mothers don't know how to use that software. So you have the technology, but if you don't educate them on how to use them, then it's worthless. So what we do is educate them. We give them the tools so they can apply them to succeed in everything in life. We do it through soccer, and now through technology and working closely as a UN Peace Ambassador to achieve those 17 SDGs that Madam Minister was just talking about. It's incredible. It's very helpful, but still needs to have also that part of understanding, and giving that opportunity for all the girls out there, and to know that they have a chance and they have a platform. So that's basically what we do in Goleadoras through the digital platform. On the ground, we do it with soccer, with the game, and together with partners like yourself, it helps us girls grow as big leaders. As Anthony was saying, the future it's already here.
Absolutely, the future is on, and it's beautiful what you're doing, really, congratulations. Now this is social impact, but now I'm going to give the word to Armando, because it's, you're in the corporate world. So, with this whole social impact, is there any way you can encourage companies to be more involved? Is there any way of evaluating them in a certain way that it's not just about their profit margins, and it's more than that?
Thanks, Saran. Let me say thank you to Mr. Jankic that put together all this event in a period that is not easy like this one, and for putting together these amazing panels where my colleagues described very well not only the issue, but what are the key enablers in order to actually make the most from the digital transformation opportunities. Seren, you're completely right. I think it's important to look also at the impact on the corporation and what is the role of the corporation in order to generate a social impact. In my opinion, I would start with the point that I always thought about this paradigm. I mean, human evolution pace has been set by knowledge. I mean, the knowledge and the flow of information, the availability of information facilitate the human evolution. In this sense, what I've been seeing in the last 15 years with computers and with integration of new technologies, of course, provided, I mean, in parallel, the growth and the social impact on the society in terms of discovery, in terms of transparency, security. Now we arrive to a point in which our own interactions with the machines and sometimes with the IoT and artificial intelligence, even if without interacting, we are in a situation in which the amount of data we are providing is much more valuable than the one that any human can absorb. So the question is this paradigm changed with respect to before? In my opinion, rather than talking about a change of paradigm, we should talk about a change of perspective. Because, of course, many industries has been disrupted and many giants arise from the technology's point of view. These kind of giants were seen at the beginning like the call of God for improving the world, because of course they are all taking care about sustainability in terms of environmental sustainability. However, they are building an edge based on asset data that of course needs to be managed, because we have to make sure that in the future years, the impact in terms of profitability go in parallel and combined with the impact in terms of social impact. Now, how can we do it? Of course, the formula, the magic formula for any corporation is profit and risk. This has been always like this. And now we have to be able to define a third dimension that is the social impact. Because today, and when I'm saying today, I mean today, already investors are looking at companies thinking about ESG. So environmental and social governance, so in terms of sustainability. And this kind of company in the future will be always evaluated more and more. Now, the concept that we should talk about is about the purpose, because whatever we said so far are definitely very good enablers that are fundamental, important. However, we need to define a purpose for corporate in order to maximize the impact that can be generated by the digital revolution. Of course, the question that arises here, and I do to the panelists, and I do also to myself, are corporations today able to measure and track the impact on the social impact of the initiatives, digital or not digital, that they are planning to develop? And above all, are they able to actually align their corporate objectives in terms of profit with objectives that are more aligned with social impact? Of course, this is not something that you do in one day. This is definitely a marathon that corporation will have to undertake. And I really believe that there is the need of taking this like a wider ecosystem of players, such as technology players, such as organization, and even policymakers, to sit together and define new metrics that can lead to a future that is definitely based also on profit, because we don't have to forget what makes companies sustainable from a financial point of view, but also in terms of social impact. This is the only way that we can have. And then, of course, we have to work on the enablers that we mentioned so far.
Wonderfully explained. I hope you will be able to achieve it, and I hope we all be able to achieve it. But one thing when it comes to corporation, the one question that we all have in mind is, of course, unemployment. In the future, they say that 47% there will be 47% unemployment compared to in the past years. So how are we going to reskill people? Will we be able to do a smooth transitioning into this era?
Thanks, Sharon. Yes, like you said in the beginning, it's a digital revolution. It has to be. We have a new world after pandemic situation, and we have to re-educate the employees, because the digital world is different than the real world. I can talk from the textile sector because I'm representing textile, so I can give some examples how the world is changing now. Since 6 years, we are doing 80% of our sampling in digital. That means we can create digital yarns, digital fabrics, even digital human avatars, digital garments, digital worlds, and we can show everything without making the real sample. This is the absolute new world, because then you met sustainability with the digitalization. This is important because we are helping also the world using less water, less carbon dioxide, less energy. So we sat with ProSoft VR Academy and Tihcat, the textile exporters and the employers association, that we will re-educate the people to start again with the digital world. And we promise with that they will find a job, definitely, because everybody needs that power. And we believe on digital power. I can give some examples. This is not only like Armando said, it's profit, but profit doesn't mean only money. It's time profit. It's also environment-based profit, because we are saving so much with the digital way. So everybody has to start finally with this. Also, it's kind of neuromarketing, neurosocial side, because we are building VR, virtual reality worlds, where you can enter in another world only with a simple glass, and you are motivated to buy. This is also important. You can sell easier than in real, because you can define how you want to show your garments. So this is for me the absolute new world, and I'm also excited to make every day more about that with our amazing team. So I believe that people will find a job, definitely. Digitalizing is nothing bad. It's something new. We have to learn it.
Yes, it is something we all have to learn. But one thing that you've mentioned in terms of the sustainability, in terms of the environment and CO2 emissions, and Anthony, I want to get back to you. You said digital space is finite, is not infinite. Could you explain to us a little bit about big data? Because big data is being stored, and we think that it can be just stored forever and ever. But as you said, it cannot. So what are we going to do with this digital footprint of humanity?
I mean, so first of all, just to concur with the previous speaker, I think you can see in the 2008 recession, the crash there, that the economy recuperated much more quickly because of digitization, right? So you can see that actually the positive societal impacts are there. People could have access to capital, they could get startups going, they could get their resumes online. So that the economy is no doubt recuperated much more quickly than it might have done in previous eras. So this kind of benefit is beyond doubt. I think my hesitancy is that there is a lot of big data out there about the overshoot of our consumption of resources. And what the internet is really good at doing is it draws attention to everything but itself, right? So we enjoy its fruits. We have access to its infinite delights and services and products, but we are failing to acknowledge that where those costs are buried, and those costs are real, and they cannot be buried indefinitely, right? For my feeling is that much of our faith in the ability of the internet to relieve us of the burden of our physical selves is, in a sense, it's almost like a religious impulse. And like any article of faith, I think we have to both treat it with reverence, but also with some skepticism.
Thank you, Anthony. And Erol, then to get back to you, again, this is part of what you describe as circular economy. Would we be able to achieve this sooner than later, and how?
I think when you start new things, it is in the human feeling that always changes comes very difficult at the first stages, but then you get to use it. So when you are talking circular economy, you are talking like a circle, complete from the production and till the end of the re-waste, and again to have the circle go ongoing way. So it means we should start with digital transformation. And there will be definitely some difficulties on digital transformation. As it is said also, even in Europe, there are too many people, they are not even know how to use the technology. Therefore, even in the European Union, the Commission for Digital Society and Digital Economy put a budget of 4 billion euro to teach these people. So, but if you look to example, a small scale example in Turkey, most of our retired persons, they have their bank cards and they take their money from the ATMs for a long time. So it means we are learning it. And when you are learning it, then when you feel it is getting easy to use it, then you are in the system. So circular economy, when you are talking, is almost the same. You start A, you come Z, you start again A to Z. So I think we are talking in reality, either circular economy or not, we are talking from a sustainability. So the key point, I think we should focus in digital transformation. As I mentioned, this is my thing, is the culture, digital culture, and also sustainability. Mm-hmm. Because even I'm an economist by profession, if you are talking from a sustainable economy, it means it is a successful economy. So if you bring sustainability into digital transformation, like in the circular economy, so then it means you are on the way to the success.
Yes, absolutely. And sustainability goes back to also re-education. And we have an example here, you have an academy that actually does it, and it is a proof that it's doable.
Of course, in the textile sector, students are finishing university, but they don't know anything about digitalization. That's the biggest problem. So we decided as ProSoft to build ProSoft Academy, like I said, to re-educate, to build this knowledge to them that they can find easily a job. And it's going really good because on the other side, we are talking about digitalization, but companies, leaders, they don't know sometimes also about it, especially the textile sector. So we have to match them together, that this knowledge, like Errol said, culture clash, that we can re-educate them and they can find easily job. We are working on this. We are calling that even sustainable designing.
It's beautiful, sustainable designing. And do you think, Armando, then companies, or do you have any examples of companies that have implemented what you've said, social impact, and you have figured out a way of evaluating them?
It's definitely plenty of examples of many companies in many different sectors. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it's fundamental to have the engagement of the big corporation. But the big dilemma is that these are also the big corporations that usually manage the transition slower than other players. And I want to see this as an opportunity because we need to identify for any sector one of the biggest players that can be like the sponsor of this transition and engaging smaller companies that can be capable, like some of the companies we are mentioning here during this panel, that can be inside the ecosystem and provide services to big organizations in a way that they can be the vertical of the technology, and together with the big organization, they can actually create an ecosystem that is self-sustainable. Mm-hmm. Let me say just one more thing. I think it's important to consider that this is not a move that can be done in one day, and especially it's not a move that can be done by one single organization. It has to be done like a wave with the involvement of different parties. And I see this as an opportunity, especially like Turkey, where the digital maturity on average of all the companies is definitely much higher than in Europe and in some parts of the world. And so this ecosystem can be actually fed by Turkish companies, small, medium enterprises that will grow around big corporations that will disrupt the different initiatives and industries.
It's true, because of the young population that
Absolutely,
Turkey has.
yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
So Eglantina, now I'm with you then. You know, you work with children, you work with little girls. So do you find them easier in adapting to this change?
Yes and no. I think they naturally are being growing up in a world that they have a phone or a smartphone. Again, I say sometimes they have the technology and they don't know how to use it. For instance, going to Haiti and working down there with young boys and young girls, especially young girls, they have no clue how to use this technology. So we, as Amanda's saying, what we try to bring together is an ecosystem of different actors so we can educate them. And I mean education in a way that they are, as we were all saying, you know, the world is changing so fast, so many jobs are going to be lost or extinct as we remember them. But I think yet nothing is going to will equal to humans, but giving these young kids the re-education of these tools of resilience, of communication, of their natural way of reacting on the field, it's going to be able to facilitate and incorporate them much easier in a digitalized world, in a world that they can use technology to serve their communities, to serve their families, to serve their education, and better their health. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And Vanessa, one final word, because our time is up, because actually you run a company, you're part of a company that has made its core business the social impact. So final word with you before we wrap up our panel.
I think everybody's touched upon very important points, and we can pick a lot of them at Buffalo Grid, but just to give an example, using our hubs, we can actually connect an individual for under $2.50 per year, providing regularly updated content from education, health, and information. This is just phase one. We've got a phase 2 and 3 to come. And phase 1 is ready for deployment. We're beginning deployment very, very shortly. So I think, but it's the same thing. We collaborate with organizations for cultural relevance. We choose people on the ground that are working directly with the people we're all looking to serve. And it's about creating this, you know, bigger ecosystem. And it's only going to change if it's public-private sector that come together with a vision. But we all need to think about being more innovative and consider scalability and cost as a major factor instead of, you know, huge-scale projects, but trying to work with people that are doing more grassroots and having quicker, faster impact.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you all. Thank you. As our panel has said, the future is here. Let's make sure it is a wonderful one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. And to your participants, and once again, Madam Minister, for your kind words at the beginning. Thank you very much.